call the meeting to order and rise for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Sue, can you call roll, please?
Councilmember Canfield.
Here.
Councilmember Chambers.
Here.
Councilmember Salzweedl.
Here.
Councilmember Yankovic.
Here.
And Mayor DeVore.
I am here. Motion to approve the consent agenda for tonight.
I'll make that motion.
I have one discussion before we move on. I would like to consider going into closed session to discuss property acquisition. Dick Went is out of town, can't be here. Dick didn't recommend that we go into closed session without him, as that was relayed to me by Mike. But I feel that we have an opportunity to possibly solve this without having attorneys involved. We wouldn't make any decisions ever in closed session, but there was a meeting between some of the principals on this that the council members really haven't got a chance to discuss yet and bounce off each other what was said. There's just a lot at stake here, and I'd like to do everything we can to try to resolve this and move it forward. So to go into closed session would require 4 votes from council members. Somebody would have to support this motion that I'm making, and then we'd have to have a vote of 4 at least to go into closed session. But just a point on my part, so we'll see if we get
Closed session, discuss
After.
purchase of property.
right after our regular meeting.
Do we have anything about questions before or not?
I'm sorry, what?
I mean, the reasoning, I know what Greg is saying, but is there, can we ask questions now or just, we should go into closed session for these questions? Not aired in public?
Well, if you under state statute, purchase of property is allowed to be a discussion item for a closed session. If you want to have that discussion of purchasing property in open session, it's within your right. However, if you are discussing purchase prices, things of that nature, which we would be discussing in closed session, that has now been, that could be a leverage issue in negotiations. Where if you put the price out there, now they know it.
We do not have a new offer, correct?
I'm not aware of one.
Well, I'll make a motion to support Greg and we'll go to vote and see what happens.
Okay, motion and second. Sue?
Councilmember Canfield.
Yes?
Councilmember DeVore, or excuse me, Mayor DeVore.
No.
Councilmember Salzweedl.
Yes.
Councilmember Yankovic.
Yes.
Councilmember Chambers.
No. All right, then a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I'll make that motion.
I'll support.
Any other discussion or changes? Sue?
Mayor DeVore.
Yes.
Councilmember Salzweedl.
Yes.
Councilmember Yankovic.
Yes.
Councilmember Chambers.
Yes.
Councilmember Canfield.
Yes.
All right, citizen discussion for items not on the agenda? Nobody? All right, old business, number 4, letter A, archive social link.
Follow up for the last meeting where we tabled the item pertaining to archive social. Since that time, I've been able to follow up with them to find out what their retention policy is if we were to cancel service with them. And the way it would work is if we ever gave them notice that we would cancel, we would have 30 days to export our information. After that, it's gone. So you'd have to do it within that 30 days, which they said it would be relatively easy to do.
But we could get it and keep it all.
Yes,
right?
you can export everything in that 30-day period. I believe that was the only question that was out there.
Yeah.
We just had to submit them if we wanted our information back, or
Right,
we
we-
physically had to go in.
I would have to go in, somebody would have to go in and export it.
Okay.
So,
But they would give us a full access
Correct.
to everything they've archived the
Correct.
whole entire time.
yeah, within that 30-day period.
Well, that was our only question, I think, so I'll make a motion that we enter into an agreement with Archive Social to provide archiving services for social media.
Support that.
Any other discussion or questions for Mike? Sue?
Councilmember Salzweedl,
Yes.
Councilmember Yankovic,
Yes.
Councilmember Chambers,
Yes.
Councilmember Canfield,
Yes.
and Mayor DeVore.
Yes. Letter B, architectural services for the showboat. Mike or Rich? Rich.
Okay, as the Lowell Showboat project is moving from concept phase to design phase and then to construction phase, it's necessary to retain professional architectural services to prepare plans, details, and specifications for project bidding purposes on both the new showboat structure and the old DPW building, which is part of the renovation as well. Work such as demolition plans, architectural floor plans, special details, interior and exterior elevations, construction, mechanical, plumbing, electrical layouts are examples of the scope of work to be completed in order to get the project into biddable format for contractors. I've requested several proposals from Michael R. Lynch, architect, to provide architectural services for the following items. And I broke this into 3 phases because we're still working on the budget components, and so I wanted to make sure that we had options we could exclude or include if we needed to based on where the budget numbers come back at. First item was the showboat build-up, not to exceed $10,000. Second item, old DPW interior renovations and facade improvements, phase 1, not to exceed $7,500. Old DPW exterior facade improvements, which I'm calling phase 2, not to exceed $8,500. And funds for these services are available in the showboat project fund. And I'm making a recommendation the City Council accept Mr. Lynch's proposal and provide architectural services for the Lowell Showboat project for a lump sum not to exceed $26,000.
So this is to get fresh paint on the outside, I'm assuming?
This is, if you're referring to the old DPW building, that's to change the facade and make it look more of like a downtown streetscape as we renovate that
All those
building.
pictures we've seen, that's what you want to do.
Exactly, we want to freshen that building up
And then
and make it a companion project.
And then the interior dollars are for what?
That's for the restrooms first and foremost, and then renovating the rest of that space on the old DPW so that it's usable as a companion project to the showboat.
Okay.
And then on the showboat side, just so you know, we have one engineer doing the shell, and then Mr. Lynch's services would help us to finish out the inside of that shell with the details, to tell us how to attach like the drywall and how to get the electrical and mechanical squeezed in that space too.
And these dollars are just for architectural design, not the painting and product or anything like that?
Correct. And you're going to see them coming to you with more and more of these kind of things as we get this project developed. But I need this portion right now to get our budgets finalized.
Okay, well, I think everybody is extremely excited to see this thing get off the ground. So I would recommend that we accept Michael Lynch's proposal to provide architectural services for the showboat, not to exceed $26,000.
Support?
Any other questions for Rich? Sue?
Councilmember Chambers,
Yes.
Councilmember Canfield,
Yes.
Mayor DeVore,
Yes.
Councilmember Salzweedl,
Yes.
and Councilmember Yankovic.
Yes.
All right. I guess new business, item A. Now we're going to open a public hearing to discuss the Lara Trail map.
I'm going to turn this over to Dave Austin. He's leading this project.
Thank you, Dave Austin with Williamson Works. Last year about this time, the council approved the submittal of a grant to the Michigan DNR Trust Fund towards the completion of the proposed rail trail extension through the city of Lowell. Both the city and Lara submitted applications, and while they scored very high on those, at the last minute, both community, Lara and the city, decided to voluntarily withdraw those applications rather than let them go dormant because we didn't have all the matching funds available at the time. We hadn't heard from MDOT. So the DNR says it's probably a better idea to withdraw them and reapply next year. So a year has gone by, a lot has happened, and at their meeting last week, Lara had the same hearing and passed a resolution to allow submittal of a new grant for $300,000 this year on April 1st towards this project. And the purpose of tonight's meeting is to review the project with you and request a similar resolution from the city. So first I'll walk you through the project again, starting on the left side, on the west side at Main Street and Bowes Road in Section 1. Again, we're going to go through the new township park cooperatively with them. Section 2 is an area that we have letter of intent to go through Grand Rapids gravel property. Section 3 would go on the southern edge of the city's property behind the water plant. And then up and around Section 4 in Stony Lakeside Park, exiting on the east side and getting down by the river. And then we've had preliminary positive discussions with Dr. Reagan, who owns Section 5, for a potential easement along the southern edge of that property. We would go under Hudson using the existing underpass, and then somehow through the fairground area. It's yet to be determined, and right now, just so you know, there's a big effort about what to do with the fairgrounds, so come to that meeting. We would cross the Flat River in Section 7, and then we're seeking permission from the railroad to go under their trestle like the North Country Trail does, which is that blue line, North Country Trail. We go across the Moose Rogers property, and much of that area will be an elevated boardwalk, given the wet conditions that are there a lot of the time. And when we get up to South Division area, we'll have a spur that'll go to the north. That'll get us a couple blocks from the ice cream store and the other downtown areas. And then there'll be a second bridge across the Grand River now, paralleling the existing vehicle bridge to get us south of the river and then to the end of the trail there. So because we had 2 grants, the DNR required that we break the project on paper at least, it would not be done this way, into 2 sections. So the city's application deals with the right side, the black boxes 6 through 10, and Laura's deals with 1 through 5. So that's the general scope. The trail would be a 10-foot wide paved trail, except for through those wet areas where we would have elevated boardwalk on piles through those areas. Since last year, we've received some funding insights, so if I could ask Sue to help me talk about the cost here. The project has grown. I think when we first started, we were in $4 million something, but we're now to about $6.5 million. And the table shows the funding. Last year, we received a thumbs up from the MDOT Transportation Alternatives Program on behalf of the city for $3.1 million. It's not an award, it's a conditional commitment given that you meet all of their conditions. And that's for a project that would take place in 2021. Then last year, again, the DNR trust fund from the city, also from Laura, and I put thumbs up there because I anticipate that we will score well again with those. And then the DNR Recreational Trails Program has given not final commitment, but thumbs up for another $300,000. Lowell Community Fund is shown as $300,000. That's actually a $100,000 initial grant with the understanding that we would reapply in subsequent years for that. The City of Lowell has dedicated $25,000 towards it, and both the townships $5,000, and that was per the original Trail Master Plan funding. We're happy to announce that a large retailer in the area has committed to $500,000 towards the project. So that leaves a balance of funding of $1,653,000. I know the folks at LARA are actively putting together a plan to talk to other large foundations with the hope of securing those at least letters of intent by October 1st, which would then put us in good stead for the next funding cycle. Now, the way this breaks down, and I'll show you the next table, is Lara's side of the project is a little over $1 million, and the city's is 5.4. But remember, I'll show you in a second, the city's getting a lot more grant out of it, so it's not that the city's paying more. So Sue, if you could take me to the last table. So here's the breakdown of that. On Lara's side, their cost is $1 million for that section, but they're limited to the trust fund and to the recreational trails program, and then they've got a $450,000 in fundraising. On the city's end, the MDOT TAP grant would go through you, $300,000 in trust, put the big donor at $500,000 on the city's end, and then $1.5 million. So again, just so the public's aware, these are not tax dollars. We're not asking the ratepayers or the taxpayers of the city of Lowell to come up with $5.4 million. It's just that the city is the recipient of these funds on behalf. The city's investment in this is limited to $25,000. So that's how the funding's broken up. Yeah.
And just to clarify, Dave, that 25,000 was committed about 5 years ago when the trail project first started. Before
Yeah.
the route was designed, there was questions with this last section, how much taxpayers are not on. This was a commitment that was made 5 years ago. It's nothing recent.
Right. There was a plan to, this is the whole trail system that goes from Owasso to Lowell to Greenville and over to Elma. So to complete that entire 125-mile section, they came up with $12.5 million of improvements. And they went around to all the townships and the cities and asked for those $25,000 and $5,000 commitments. And that's what was made. So I'd be happy to answer any questions that council might have. After that, council would open it up to public input. After that's closed, you would consider a resolution authorizing the submittal of the DNR grant.
So the 1.1 million to take down, that's 1 through 5, is that what you said? That's the part of the funding comes?
Yeah, Sue, could you go back to that map, please?
Yeah.
So yeah, again, 1 through 5 is the Lowell Area Recreation Authority's section. And the reason that that's so inexpensive, there's no bridges on that
Bridges,
one.
right, yeah.
It's simply trail on grade. There's a little bit of boardwalk on the east side of Stony Lakeside. 6 through 7 has 2 bridges, and those darn things are extremely expensive. Talk to the folks at Lowell Township, they can tell you how much they are. And speaking of that, you can see we've got a connection there, and that's going to be a wonderful trio of crossings here, and eventually we hope that those will all be linked. But any other council questions?
Any questions for Dave on the map part of it? No. All right, then we will close the public hearing on the trail map part, and now move to item D, and that's public input on the application for the MDNR Trust Fund grant. Anyone want to speak on that or comment on that? And Sue, we didn't receive anything in writing about that?
No.
Okay. We'll drop that. Then we'll move down to item C, and that is Resolution 1219, MDNR Trust Fund grant application for the River Valley Rail Trail Lowell Connection Project.
Yeah, the manager who has the resolution, I don't know if you're choosing to read that verbatim or how you do that, but basically the resolution authorized you to submit the application and the dollar amounts that we.
That's 300,000.
Yeah.
It's due April 1st, right? The grant the application.
Yes, yes.
Well,
Resolution 1219, correct?
Yep.
I'll make a motion that we accept resolution 1219.
Support.
Any other discussion or questions for Dave? Sue?
Councilmember Canfield,
Yes.
Councilmember DeVore,
Yes.
Councilmember Salzweedl,
Yes.
Councilmember Yankovic,
Yes.
and Councilmember Chambers.
Yes.
All right, very good. That brings us down to letter D, Resolution 1319, and that is a lease agreement with Windcraft Aviation LLC. Mike?
If you recall, last year, we had a student from Lowell High School by the name of Alex Taylor present his project regarding personalized aircraft. He formed his company named Windcraft Aviation to work on this endeavor. He's been working with airport manager Casey Brown on this and is using space at the Lowell Airport. The city attorney and I have been working with Casey to draft a lease for this usage. Attached is a lease, a 1-year lease, and would be for him to use building 3 at the airport, and it would be 1 year leased at $1,000 per month. The agreement is in proper form for the city attorney, and we're recommending that the city council approve resolution 1319 to enter into a lease with Windcraft Aviation as presented.
Yeah, he was here last year.
Yep.
He's doing some really good stuff out there. I would recommend that we approve Resolution 1319 to enter into a lease with Windcraft Aviation.
Support.
Any other discussion? Sue?
Mayor DeVore,
Yes.
Councilmember Salzweedl.
Yes.
Councilmember Yankovic.
Yes.
Councilmember Chambers.
Yes.
And Councilmember Canfield.
Yes.
All right, jumping down, item E, NEDC grant. You got it. Rich.
On December 28th of 2018, Governor Snyder signed legislation directing the Michigan Economic Development Corporation to award the city of Lowell a grant in the amount of $1.3 million. The grant provides working capital to replace the Lowell Showboat with a steel barge structure, which serves as a focal point for the citizens and visitors of Lowell. The term of this grant shall commence on January 1st, 2019, and shall terminate on January 31st, 2021. I recommend City Council accept the MEDC grant and authorize the mayor to execute the agreement on behalf of the city of Lowell. And this is similar to the $1 million appropriation that came in the prior year.
I'll make a motion that we authorize the mayor to execute the agreement on behalf of the city of Lowell.
I'll support.
Any other questions for Rich? Sue?
Councilmember Salzweedl.
Yes.
Councilmember Yankovic.
Yes.
Councilmember Chambers.
Yes.
Councilmember Canfield.
Yes.
And Mayor DeVore.
Yes. All right, item F, the fire authority budget. These were given to us at our January meeting. The top one is the budget going forward if they chose not to do full-time employees. The second page is the budget with full-time employees. The only notable increase is really $2,000 to the chief's salary, small decrease in operating supplies, small decrease in travel, and then the insurance raises that we do every single year. We're going to discuss it more at our April meeting. They canceled the March meeting. So we're going to discuss it more. Both budgets have been presented and accepted. We just have to formalize them. So I gave them to you guys to review. If you guys have any questions or comments or concerns, we meet next Monday at 3:30. So, yes.
So, looking at this budget, if we do go with the full-time employees, the first year, it looks like it's roughly a $62,000 increase, is that correct?
Yes.
Do they have a full breakdown for do they have an analysis going forward as to what that cost will be? Because I understand the first couple of years it's grant funded.
They haven't applied for the grant yet because you have to, in order to qualify for the SAFER grant, you have to prove almost a 10-year sustainability plan. So these are without any grant money. That's the increase without any grant money.
So we're looking at a 67% or $67,000 increase this year, and then have they projected out what the out years would be to the city of Lowell? Or actually all three municipalities, have they done that?
They have not done that because they need to, they're working still on pay structure, what kind of command staff they would like, benefits packages, workman's comp, all that stuff. So that's coming back to them before we get to these two budgets.
So this 177, does this account for our cost for three firefighters?
3 firemen, yeah.
All at the same rank, or are they?
No, and that's what they haven't decided which direction they're going to take yet. So that's a discussion going on internally of how they want to spend it on, who they want to spend it on.
From where I sit administratively, obviously, it's been directed, from what I understand, the consensus of the council is they're interested in the full-time fire. And that can, if that is what the council wants, we will budget for that. What I'd like to see, though, is something more than 1 year out, because we're gonna, this year, we're gonna be able to free up some costs, because we're gonna take, the DDA is gonna take on either $100,000 of the city's portion of the bond, or $150,000 of the building bond. I don't know that amount yet, but having that number, obviously, and that number is gonna allow us to be able to that money freed up and allow us to address some of our pension issues, obviously the full-time fire. So I need to know what, I'd like to see a trend for at least 5 years.
You got it.
So that budget there is one fireman per township, and then.
There's there'd be all three would cover everywhere. There's a formula that they use to decide who pays what. So everybody would get the same coverage. They just break down what each municipality is going to pay based on the formula that they've been using. And if we go without full-time, we see a reduction because we don't use the newer tender because we have hydrants and we don't account for longer travel times and oxy.
Have you ever had any feedback from Lowell and Township on these increases?
Tim sits on the board with me, and then I speak to Jerry Hill regularly about it. It's come along, I don't want to speak for them, obviously. They're planning on coming up with funding sources for it. So whether they decide to do a public safety millage or whatever, I don't know which direction they're going to take. But
For it to work, all three entities have to be.
well, and if it passes the board, it's kind of a you're stuck paying for it now. You know.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
One other question. Have they been able to forecast trucks that they're going to need to buy going forward too? Because I'd like to see that as well for budget planning purposes, because we know that this truck that we just received, we were able to use fund balance for, but I know going forward that's probably not going to be.
Pay for the general fund. Yep, the next truck up for replacement is 2022, and that is the county truck, so we received some money from the county. Tim Wittenbach and I are the subcommittee for equipment, so we're preparing a presentation for equipment going 10 years out. So the next major vehicle up would be the engine in 2022. And then there's some talk about trying to switch our place in line so that we can push it out because it's in relatively decent shape. And then the only other, I wouldn't even know if you'd call it major, is they lease, well, they have a gift of a lease of a UTV that they use for brush fires and off-road stuff. They're looking when that lease expires to maybe need to purchase that, but I can't see that being a major equipment fund. So, the 2022, Tim and I are working on a projection even farther out than that.
Yeah, if we could see something like this, we have an idea. Because, I mean, it's $70,000 a year roughly increase to the budget.
I know.
That's going to be a lot of those years that we have a truck.
Yep. And that's
You're
what
going to have that issue as well. And I know we need to subsidize the fire department, but we have our own revenue.
And that's why
issues as
Tim and
well.
I started putting that together, because this will probably be the last major vehicle purchase that comes straight out of fund balance.
Right.
Anything going forward is going to require some kind of contribution. And then 2022, like I said, we get that county contribution. So, but that fluctuates. We have a ballpark of what it might be.
That next truck in 2022 is a $1 million purchase.
If you mirror it to what they already have or what they would need it for, probably, then you get your giveaway value, and then the county contributes as well. And that's some of the push behind moving up in line. Is that it gives you a little buffer to decide, I guess, maybe a better design time, and then the problem is you got to find somebody on that list of county departments to trade with you, and that's sometimes a little more of a struggle. Because people get it, they do the same thing. They sit down with their boards and they say, we're going to do a truck in 2026. Well, now they don't want to jump back 4 years because they're not prepared for it. So there's options that they're looking at, but Tim and I will have a report on that probably in the next month or so for equipment. Anything else for me on that? Nope. All right, then we'll move to item G, the comprehensive tree plan for the Arbor Board.
Hello, my name is Jim Reagan, and I'm the chairman of the Arbor Tree Board. We try to do this annually. hopefully you got a copy of the 2019 and 2020 plan. Just to kind of nutshell, Arbor Day tree planting, we tentatively have scheduled for April 26th with Benton Baker with their renovation. We thought that would be a good fit for fitting in there with their landscaping, so we offered to purchase a tree for them. We're just kind of waiting for them and their landscaping to where that would be. Our projected budget for 2019 and 20 is about $6,000, and that includes anywhere from planting more trees to pruning them, if it's a dry summer, watering them. I think on the plan also it has a area for residents if they want to plant trees, some guidelines as far as not putting them over underneath electric lines, and find out from the city where your water and sewer comes in. And kind of in a nutshell, our last meeting, just kind of recent, we just talked about replacing some of the trees on Main Street that have overgrown their locations perhaps, and impinging on some of the businesses. So when we end up replacing them, we'll kind of do it in phases. Try to have the trees more columnar instead of spread out, so not to obstruct the storefronts. And our goal is to phase it in. At the same time, we're going to look into instead of having those big heavy grates that are hard to move, if we have to do anything to the water irrigation system, to maybe have some permeable mats. And Rich, I think, is working on the cost for all that stuff. So that was our last meeting that we kind of talked about. Last thing, as far as the light and power, just going to be trying to put some of their lines underground in Valley Vista, and not have to worry about tree, planting, trimming or cutting down the trees. So I applaud them for that, but I hope they realize that Lowell's almost like a big gravel pit, so they might run into some big boulders there. So just have them be aware of that. Just like to acknowledge the people on the board, Perry Beecham, Diane Lowell, and Melissa Spino are also on our board. Okay? Any questions for me at all?
Yeah, you said some of the trees on Main Street. Are those going to be those trees that drop them berries? Because those things, I've watched so many people slip on those.
We're trying to get more columnar that don't have, I actually tried to spray to keep some of the berries from being pollinated, so they wouldn't be there. So we're aware of that situation, and we're going to be trying to get non-bearing fruit. If we get under trees and they tell us they're not bearing fruit, and then it's try to stay away from fruit-bearing ones. But even the ginkgos, some of those are really, once in a while we get the females thrown in there by accident. So it's just the luck of the draw. But we are aware of that and trying to, if we can switch over, we'll try to get non-fruit-bearing trees. The birds will have to go someplace else.
I think, Marty, we're also looking at trees, particular height they can grow, so the root ball's not as big too, and I think Rich is really working on that for us as well.
Yeah, because I get people coming into our store that comment on the trees and why we have so many different size trees. We have big trees.
We've been replaced some of them, over the years. If you look in the spring, in another month or two, there's going to be a lot of them that look really great. When the blossoms are out. But some of them get hit by cars and stuff like that. So we've been replacing some of those with some non-fruit bearing. That's why they are different. They're short and stubby. The ginkgos are good examples for that. They look really pretty scrawny, but most of them don't bear fruit. They tolerate the salt, so you're kind of limited on some of the trees that you can get in a residential area with sidewalks and the heat and all that stuff. It can tolerate all the traffic. Salt primarily is the big, where the selection is minimized, where we can really pick and choose which trees are going to grow. Too. But we've been working on that, and just so they don't spread out. And, they've been there 20 years, and some of them, I remember the big pots that used to come out, they used to, do those that they just planted them someplace, but once we put the sidewalks in, we put them in the ground. This is what we were given, back in the early 90s.
Any other questions? Okay. All right, I will look for a motion to approve the comprehensive tree plan.
I'll make that motion.
Support. Any other discussion? Sue?
Councilmember Chambers.
Yes.
Councilmember Canfield.
Yes.
Mayor DeVore.
Yes.
Councilmember Salzweedl.
Yes.
And Councilmember Yankovic.
Yes.
All right, last item, River Walk fireworks. Michael?
We received a request from the Lowell Area Chamber of Commerce for this year's fireworks show at Sunny Lakeside Park. This is an annual request, and the event is being held this year on Saturday, July 13th, 2019. Attached is the application form, which will be filed to the state, a map of where they will be detonating, and a copy of their liability insurance listing the city of Lowell as an additional insured. I'm recommending the Lowell City Council approve the fireworks application as requested.
I'll make that motion.
I'll support.
Any other questions for Mike? Sue?
Councilmember Canfield.
Yes.
Mayor DeVore.
Yes.
Councilmember Salzweedl.
Yes.
Councilmember Yankovic.
Yes.
And Councilmember Chambers.
Yes.
All right, takes us to board and commission reports, Mr. Canfield.
Dave pretty well covered the Lara meeting last week with his presentation. That was at 6 o'clock on Tuesday, and 7 o'clock on Tuesday was the airport board meeting, so it was a little tight for me to make both of those. I was a few minutes late, but a lot of exciting things going on out there. That was pretty well attended. There were about 15 people there, probably 10 of them were pilots who had an interest there. But the Windcrest Aviation, Alex Taylor, the young man, he is making some progress in what he's doing. Hopes to, fingers crossed, have a flying prototype in less than a year. So pretty excited to see something like that happen here in Lowell. And Casey Brown also applied for a $500,000 grant to the state for airport improvements and is waiting to hear the results of that. Wasn't real confident, but you always have to throw your name in the hat for those, but that would allow them to do some runway extensions, paving and clearing. It was an interesting meeting, and it's a little tough for me with the timing of it, but I'm going to try that for a couple more meetings and see how that works. It ends up running over late from the Lara meetings. I may have to hand that off to someone else, but they said it had been 3 or 4 years since they've seen anybody from the council, so they didn't have a seat for me. I had to get my own in. Good meeting.
Good, thank you. Mr. Chambers.
Light and Power, we worked on getting our budget around. That's due here pretty quick, so sounds like we got that pretty much wrapped up. Planning Commission, we worked on, we're still working on recreational marijuana. We're now diving into how to control the smells coming from the facilities. So it's just one more step in a long process, but we are making leaps and bounds towards it. And we're going to get there eventually, so that's what I got.
Very good. Mr. Yankovic.
Attended my second chamber board meeting. Learned that the Riverwalk Riverwalk Festival is 25 years old this year. They're amping up like triple the music this year. It's going to be cool. And kind of an offshoot of that meeting, one of the board members was highly recommending the Mary Poppins play. And so I bought a couple tickets, and I was blown away. The kids at the high school, Dave and I were talking about it before the meeting. That was not a high school presentation I sat through. I've been to a lot of theater productions over my lifetime, and it was spectacular.
Very cool. All right, Mr. Sullivan.
Well, Doc Regan and I handled the Arbor Board as we met last week, and the other thing that I want to add on that, I know we're looking at also one design for the plaque, so if somebody donates a particular tree and there's a plaque that we're kind of standardizing what that plaque may look like, and things like that, so Rich is working on it as well. That's all I got.
Very good. We already covered most of fire authority. We'll meet again next week. Play off what Dave was talking about earlier. Mike and I, Rich, sit on the committee to decide what we're going to do with the fairgrounds when the fair leaves. So we're going to have some ideas and options and some bunch of cool information up at the expo this weekend, which is Saturday, I think 9 to 3, right?
Correct.
9 to 3. And then the Greater Lowell Community Vision Alliance meets tomorrow at 4 o'clock at the school. I think that's going to be different. Yep. Any questions, comments on the monthly report section? City manager's report.
Just want to remind everyone that Expo this weekend, we will have two booths this year right next to each other. So if council members want to man one of the booths, please let me know. Times will be from 9 to 3. We'll have our regular police and city booth, but also we will have a second booth that'll be promoting the Rec Park Design Day, which is scheduled for April 17th. We will have 2 sessions that day, one from 2 to 4, and the second one from 5 to 7. What we're actually going to do is people can come in and we're going to give them an aerial map of the park, and we're going to give them 34 game pieces. And every person, they can basically play and pick and decide what they think they would like to see in the new park once the fairgrounds vacates. And we're going to take that information as our survey and hopefully utilize that for our policy planning as we move forward. So looking forward to that, and we will have a booth at Expo to spread that message out for the 70s. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I have now begun the process of preparing the budget for fiscal year 2020. I started working on it last week, and I'm spending more time on it every day. We're still going to see a little bit of an increase in property values from last year. We're still seeing an increase in taxable value, we'll see probably I'm anticipating about a 2.4% increase. And I don't know how much that breaks down to dollars just yet. We're still working on that, but we're in the process of preparing everything for next year. I should let you know that we MERS, the Municipal Employee Retirement System for Michigan. They finally have made their announcement as to what their rate of return reduction is going to be. Beginning in July 1st of 2021, there will be a reduction from 7.75% to 7.3%. That will be an increase to us. I'm working on some things right now to try and reducing that unfunded liability. There's some things that we can do that we're going to have when we have the contract negotiations up in 2020 that we're going to have to address. And I'm already working on that. So stay tuned. The LARA, as we all know, the License and Regulatory Affairs Agency for the state of Michigan, is putting their rules and regulations currently for recreational marijuana. They have a number of different focus groups. One is focusing on the concerns of the distributors. One is focusing on the concerns of the growers. And there's also one for the concerns of the municipalities. I've been asked to sit on that focus group. I will be in Lansing next Wednesday, all day, meeting with them on that. At our next council meeting, I was hoping to bring it tonight, but my plate was too full. I couldn't bring it, but been working on the revisions to the purchasing policy. If you recall, last summer, Light and Power made some revisions to their purchasing policy, and I asked at that time for us to make some revisions to ours because it felt it was a little outdated. And so we worked on it internally. Finally, we were able to rewrite the policy, and I will be bringing it to council for the next council meeting to look at. Michigan Department of Transportation has informed us that on the week of April 15th through the 19th, they anticipate doing traffic counts on Main and Hudson to determine whether or not there's enough traffic to get a left-hand turn signal. So hopefully, a lot of people drive that week and maybe.
Can we encourage everyone in Lowell to make a left turn?
Through Shell and keep going around.
Yeah.
Multiple left turns. Sorry.
Today I had the opportunity to participate with the police department. I'm going to have police chief talk about it, but there's a 4-year-old boy by the name of Peyton, what's his last name?
Dennis.
Peyton Dennis. And he's struck with cancer to his, I believe, his brain stem. And the prognosis isn't good for him, but he has an affinity for police officers. And he's been going and spending going all over West Michigan lately with different police departments. So I'm gonna have Steve talk about what's going on with that.
So if you've been following the news, a couple weeks ago, a friend of mine reached out to me and asked me if I'd seen this story about Peyton Dennis. And he has a disease called DIPG, which stands for, I had to write it down, diffuse intrinsic pontine granuloma, which is a tumor located in the middle of his brainstem. Prognosis is terminal. They're hoping he makes it to his 5th birthday, which is next month. He came in today and we noticed he was not feeling too well. He was going in for his cancer treatment today, and our plan was we were going to give him a ride to the Boss Children's Hospital in the police cruiser with Detective Warren. His mom texted me earlier today and said that his port had flipped, and that's why he was in a lot of pain, and they rushed him into emergency surgery. In between the 2 meetings, she did text me and said he was out and he was wearing the LPD shirt that we got him, and he's on his way home to get some well-deserved rest. So if you want to follow his story, it is Our Cowboy Peyton Fighting DIPG on Facebook. So we did swear him in as a special police officer today, and he got his own locker and a couple patches, a challenge coin, and his very own badge.
Cool. And he's gonna come back.
Right. He's going to come back when he's home.
Very cool. Well done.
One last thing, just wanted to see if the council had any reservation. April 15th, we have our Monday meeting. I'm going to be out of town that evening, and just with a lot of the I'll be out on a personal matter, and just with all the things that are on our plate right now, I was going to just have Rich do it, but with respect to Rich, I don't want to put Rich through that. It's really my job. So we was wondering if it was all possible if we could move the meeting to Tuesday at 7 p.m.
It's not a job interview, is it?
No, no job interview.
No, council the whole day. Nothing on that. Normally we do.
Yeah, I don't have anything right now for that. There's a couple of things that I'm hoping to get on old business for the next 2 meetings, to where I don't know if we need to devote a committee of the whole to, but.
I don't have any objection to it.
Rob?
I'm good.
Thank you.
Tuesday at 7, Tuesday the 16th at 7.
Correct.
Got it.
And that's all I have.
All right, nothing in the.
Oh, wait a minute, Rich does have something.
Rich has something.
I want to announce we're going to have brush cleanup next week.
Yes.
So Monday through Thursday, please have your brush out this week so we can get ready to pick it up Monday through Thursday of next week. We're getting lots of requests for brush cleanup.
Do you want it on mine on Jefferson or North Street?
You can
Doesn't
put it
matter as long as it's out?
wherever in the right of way as possible, yeah. Yeah, we won't pick it up if it's not stacked up in the right of way, by the way, so
Okay.
we're not going to come into your yard and grab it for you. Thank you.
That would be your next question, wouldn't it? Yeah. All right.